Thank you very much. Always good to hear the Jamaican National Anthem. And my name is Hubert Lawrence, and I'm doing that thing with the phones. So I hope you will. Maybe I'm the last guy to do it. So I think that's what happens. Wonderful gadgets, the phones. You might wonder what I'm doing here. You might wonder how it is that I have any allegiance with G.C. Foster. I was telling Ms. Diane Shaw, part of the G.C. Foster family. And I know Mr. Fennell knows everything about me, but doesn't know this one. The G.C. Foster College came up out of the ground in front of my house. My father's house is just back there and looks out onto the field. And in the late 1970s, we began to see the activity here on this ground. Argonawa Textile just down the road. That's what we knew it for at the time. And day by day, block by block, truckload by truckload, the G.C. Foster transformed this empty space into the institution that stands here just about 32 years later after 1980. I was still here when I watched Maurice Westney coaching Devon Helsinki Morris on the dirt track by the fence. Dirt track by the fence. Long before what we call Chevron was laid out there and people began to train and run track meets on the Chevron. If you never heard the term Chevron, it means you weren't here in 1980. When the school was being built as a gift from the Cuban government, one thing was crystal clear, that the school be named after Gerald Claude Foster, world-class sprinter, coach at several places in the high school track and field history, not just coaching kids, but teaching people how to coach. He wasn't popular with everybody. If you read through Herbert McDonald's History of Champs, you will hear the sound of people not liking professional coaches. At that time, the schoolmaster coached everything. And when G.C. Foster and Ted Lamont and those guys emerged, it was a change, a shift, and changes always make people uncomfortable. But today, we stand celebrating his legacy and celebrating the work he has done and the work continued here. We look at the present students with their logos on their chests, sound mind in a sound body, or is it sound body in a sound mind? It's almost chicken and egg that the two things feed on each other. And we stand here very proud to have this day. The G.T. Foster family here, Mike Fennell, head of the Jamaica Olympic Association, and as the morning goes on, we'll point out to you more of the people who were here at different times from the beginning. I was talking to Victor Gale out back. He was here from construction. Big round of applause to Victor Gale, part of the staff for 32 years. We're going to move through the function expeditiously. Going to call to the podium Marilyn Cunningham, Acting VP Administration at G.C. Foster.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Shakes, the principal of the college, has asked me to stand in for him. He is unavoidably absent, and he sends his greetings. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone here this morning to this function to honor G.C. Foster, the man, and to unveil the bust that will at the front of the college when visitors and students enter the college. It will be good for them to see the person who the college is named after. I would also like to congratulate the students from the Student Council of the 2011-2012 council for coming up with the idea of a bust of GC Foster. Having the bust in the year when we celebrate the 50th year of Jamaica's independence, I think is fitting, because GC Foster College and GC Foster the man has been has made fitting contributions to sports in Jamaica. And I think it's also fitting in the year that we celebrate the Olympic Games, when Jamaica did so well, and we have been celebrating the contribution of GC Foster College to the Olympic efforts. This year has also seen the launch of the GC Foster Museum, and I think the bus will also be a good contribution to that effort. And I hope that this will be the beginning of GC Foster making recognition of sporting personalities who have contributed to Jamaica, and our past students and present students who have contributed to Jamaica's excellence in sport. Once again, I'd like to welcome everyone and to congratulate the Student Council for this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Lady Cunningham. You may know that the GC Foster College is an act of Caribbean unity. Back in the late 1970s, our government and the Cuban government became close, and this unit is a gift to us from the Cuban government. That cooperation between Jamaica and Cuba in sports continues in a wide range of areas. I know Mr. Fennell has facilitated the trips of Jamaican athletes to Cuba for special training in different areas. And as a real continuing sign of our cooperation, I hail Rolando Rodriguez, baseball coach. He is from Cuba. So you can see that ongoing cooperation in sports continues through the GC Foster College. Among those here for a long time and with a unique perspective on sport is Maurice Westney, our Vice Principal. We ask Mr. Westney to the podium to bring greetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mike Fennell, Honorable Mike Fennell. We have had quite a long relationship over the past maybe 30 years in sports. The Shaw family, or the GC Foster family, Mrs. Shaw and her siblings and relatives, members all sitting here. We have started a little bit late, so I take it that a lot of people say I speak very long. I won't do that to you. But I just want to give my portion of the greetings on behalf of the Sports and Recreation Museum that was being contemplated for quite a while. But it was in the last 2 years that it really picked up, and we had our launch early this year. Now, it is quite interesting or symbolic that we are having this function today. And it is said that where there is no leadership, the people perish. And I think it is because of the leadership that came out of the museum to highlight all that has been going on in sports, and more so to give some credence to GC Foster himself, who was really the most outstanding figure at the time when Michael Manley, the late Michael Manley, Hugh Small, I think Derek Haven and that group of persons decided to put GC Foster on the map here in Jamaica. And just to sidetrack a little bit, they went to Kingston trying to find a place to put the college. And I think they did a very good search. Not only physical search, but they used the means of the surveyors. And there is no physical space in Kingston. And that is one of the reasons why I came here. Now, that's very good, and it's even coming back to haunt us now, because we'll be having champs sometime this year in our 104th or 103rd year. And because of the World Cup elimination for football, there will be some changes in the championships. I am not rooting for a change, but it just goes to show that we need to be more, we have to be thinking long term ahead. And we really shouldn't have this problem of only one venue where, because of the match, then we can't have championships, which is really a sad state after, say, 40 years. So I just, just lament that. And as I said before, the GC Foster Museum and for Sports and Recreation will be up and running by February. And with this idea, I think the students or the general public is really getting to the fact that the contribution to sports by individuals can be recognized, and hopefully we'll see in another year or two, even at this function, people will be coming in just to view, just to read, just to participate in GC Foster's development. GC Foster, I was just checking the records really. Weightlifting is one of the sports that GC Foster used as an auxiliary to sports development. He never, I can't recall he did weightlifting as a sport. And that's one of the eras we have started here, just September here. And I spoke to Mr. Fennell some time ago that, and I'm actually doing it. I'm just going on the computer, checking the records, and the Weightlifting Association will be established very, very shortly, sir. And I'll come to you with all my papers and stuff for you to sign, so we can have it as a full-fledged sport. We have also had baseball, and we have Mr. Rodriguez sitting over there. It's our Cuban baseball coach. Although baseball was, and it wasn't, and it's still not now an Olympic sport, but it's a very, very important sport in North America, for example. We are also trying, in the tradition of what GC Foster meant, and he saw sports not only as something competitive, but there were also a recreational side to sport. And I'm sure he did quite a lot, but we are going to take that one step further as the institution named after him to introduce very slowly in our curriculum archery, handball, and rowing. The rowing part, I'm not sure how we'll do it, but if I remember clearly, in Beijing, I never went to Beijing, unfortunately, but the Chinese did an excellent job. And if I don't think Mr. Fennell can help me out on that. I think someday we can get some support. And there's a river right here, very famous river in St. Catherine, the Rio Cobre, which a lot of that water is gone to Kingston. I mean, St. Catherine people sometimes complain about water. So, but we'll work it out, and I'm sure introducing those sports will not only increase participation, but it will increase the recreational aspect. And our aim in Jamaica is to ensure that Jamaica not only make it very big internationally in sports, but also as a society we can develop doing recreation and sports for all. So once again, on behalf of the museum committee here GC Foster Sports and Recreation, I just want to commend the students again, and hope the other groups will come up with other ideas, novel ideas, that will help us to get this movement going and ensure that the name GC Foster lives on and on long after we have left there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wesley. You know, I call him Sir Mike Fennell. Mike Fennell, JWA president, may tell you in the next few minutes that Jamaicans were so happy that the GC Foster was opened that the women decided to win their first Olympic medal in 1980, as if to celebrate. Up until that point, we had had fourth places and finalists and so on and so forth. But not until 1980 did Merlene Ottey win the first Olympic medal for a Jamaican woman. And with that Catch-22 introduction, I call to the podium our friend, Mike Fennell, JWA president.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Acting two vice principals, the GC Foster family, friends, students of the college. I have to be a little careful because when you are at a function like this to unveil the bust of a famous Jamaican athlete, administrator, coach, one can get carried away with reminiscing and you don't know when to stop. But it's times like these you need to talk about these situations, and I hope that the younger generation will understand, because you come to the school, you hear about the school, you see the sign, or when you could see the sign, there's no sign out there now on the road, GC Foster College, who was GC Foster, what is he, etc. And we suffer from a lack of knowledge about some of the past, a lack of knowledge about some of the people who are involved. And we have to seize these opportunities to remind ourselves and also to pass on information. And you know, those of us who are older have a responsibility that sometimes we don't do too well, which is the transfer of knowledge. How do we transfer this knowledge to others so that we don't forget? But may I just reflect on a couple of things that Maurice West has said, and I need to correct a few things. You're talking about weightlifting. We do have a weightlifting association, right? You don't need to form one. It has been dormant for some time because people have gone more into weight training and fitness places rather than weightlifting as a sport. And Les Pedler, who is gravely ill, is the president on record for that. And we've had people like Calvin Stamp and so on representing Jamaica at the Olympic Games in weightlifting. You talk about rowing. We also have a rowing federation who have done a lot of work in Kingston Harbour, because a rowing course, a full rowing course, is 2,000 meters and should be 2,200 with the runoff. And the Kingston Harbour presents an ideal place, particularly early in the morning. The trouble is that it's quite difficult to get going with the type of equipment you need, but there are coaches available to do that, and we're always barraged by people trying to get rowing going. But you know, as a little anecdote, some people don't understand the level of sport that's practiced at the Olympic level. And a few years ago, I had somebody coming to me to say that they were going to represent Jamaica at rowing. And I said, yeah. He said, you rows every day. I said, but how are you going to qualify for this? He said, no, I have a rowing machine at home, and I'm going to get fit and represent Jamaica in rowing. But that goes to show you how some people will have a desire and not really recognize how difficult it is to move forward. This year, Jamaica is celebrating its 50th anniversary, and naturally a lot of people have looked back to 1962. And in looking back to 62, naturally people had to go further back. And in terms of Jamaica's performance on the international scene, they went back to 1948, which was the first time that Jamaica participated in the Olympic Games in London. We were still a colony at that time, and certainly this was quite a breakthrough for Jamaica, and the records will show that our first gold medal was won by Arthur Wint. Actually, in terms of chronology, he won a silver medal first in the 800 meters, coming second to Mal Whitfield. Then he won the 400 meters, beating Herb McKinley. Herb McKinley was by far the favorite, but he beat Herb McKinley. How does this relate to the bust of G.C. Foster? Because G.C. Foster was de facto the real coach of that team. The records will show that an American called Joel Yancey was the listed coach, because our runners were doing a lot in the States and so on, and they got Joe Yancey at the time. G.C. Foster was there, and I think he would have been listed more as a masseur rather than anything else, but he was de facto the coach. In those days I was still at school, and we all had to come across G.C. Foster at one stage or the other, either as a coach or as a masseur, as an inspirational leader. And I can recall going to him when I was playing sport, and he was either doing something with the ankle or muscle or something like that, and hearing his stories about 1948. What I found very interesting is that as a masseur to the team, remember I said Herb McKinley was by far the favorite. His record of performance, and Arthur Wint was not expected to even place, or although Arthur Wint won. And I heard on several occasions the story while G.C. Foster was assisting me of how he inspired Arthur Wint to win. And he told him, because Arthur Wint went to G.C. Foster to say, look, sir, I want to do my best. I would love to come at least second, or maybe, near to Herb. How can I? And GC converted his mind into that you can be a winner. Because remember this, and those who are here, preparing the physical body is only halfway. You have to prepare the mind as well. And when I heard that story several times, I said, it's amazing how he made the mind of Arthur Wint understand clearly how he could win. I invite you, if you can find it, I have been working on it recently, the film, not very good film in today's thing, because the technology was not available, of that race with Herb McKinley leading down to almost the last 120 yards, or 120 meters, and Arthur Wint with his strides coming down, because he was much taller, was not a sprinter, and just kept going, and it reflected, or it just allowed me to reflect on how G.C. Foster had described it, that Arthur Wint, who could not sprint, was told just keep going and accelerating as best as you can, and McKinley will be running out of gas, etc. And he just kept and pounding. And Herb McKinley's own story, that he heard these feet coming behind him and he didn't know what to do. And you'll see the race where he passed him and won the 400 meters. What is equally fascinating, that G.C. Foster told us the same story about what he told Herb McKinley and how he could win the race. And he also, talked about Herb McKinley's, but it was a matter of strategy, mind. But the most important thing that I want to say in this reminiscing is what he did with Arthur Wint's mind, to shift it from one where he thought he would want to do his best behind the leaders to that of being a winner. And to my mind, that is a great example of what influence and inspiration in an individual can be. But G.C. Foster's name has been used for this college, and I can also tell you at the time there was a lot of talk about should it be the Foster Lamont College, because during those days Ted Lamont was the other well-known coach. Ted Lamont, however, was not broadly involved as much as G.C. Foster, because G.C. Foster was not only a coach, he was a masseur, he was a physiotherapist, he was a mentor, and many others, whereas Ted Lamont was a top-class athletics coach. So I think in terms of comparing, and I don't I don't like comparisons, but I'm just saying this to show you that why it ended up with G.C. Foster. Those of you who have the time should try and talk to someone like Dr. Cynthia Thompson, the lady who was a member of that 48 team, and Dr. Cynthia Thompson was also a beneficiary of G.C. Foster's coaching, teaching, and mentoring. She celebrates a big birthday next week, as a matter of interest, and she was a part of that 1948 team, and I think held a record for one race. I believe in the race that she in the heats that she won, she broke a record, but then the next heat the record was broken again. That was in 1948. But I'm rambling a bit, but I think it's important that as we sit here and we are here today to talk about the unveiling of a bust of G.C. Foster, some of these reflections will help us to try and understand the man and the contribution that he made. His contribution came at a time when the level of sophistication that exists today was not around. And you may say, well, what sophistication I'm talking about? Well, we are light years ahead of where we were in those days, and those people worked without any resources whatsoever. We cry about limited resources today, but they had no resources. People were running on grass tracks. What they ran on in the 40th Olympic Games was called en tout cas, that's a French name, or a cinders track, almost like loose gravel, and would never think of doing that. We train on grass, all sorts of things, but we still, with limited resources, could be as good as anybody else. To my mind, again, G.C. Foster would tell you, and I heard this myself, the limitations that you have and the difficulty in getting what you need to succeed should not limit you in what you can succeed with, because you can go and achieve as much as possible. But if you spend time thinking about your restrictions, thinking about what you don't have, you will never ever succeed. Take what you have and run with it. And G.C. Foster was able to do this extremely well. When we unveil a bus for G.C. Foster at the college, it is important for these anecdotes and other reminiscences to be known by the people who see the bust, because looking at it, you must draw some inspiration from the fact that this college, which has done so much so far and can do so much more, should be an inspiration to every student that comes through here. The role that the graduates of G.C. Foster have played in the development of sports in Jamaica and beyond is incredible to date, and it's growing, and you can be justly proud of what has happened. And it's not just in sport, because the graduates of G.C. Foster have been into other industries, and because of the training and the discipline and the values that they learn about sport can also take you into other disciplines. So it's not just sport alone. But as we unveil G.C. Foster's bust today, during this 50th year of our independence, let us recall that those people who laid that foundation, our success in sports didn't just start at London 2012, it didn't start in Beijing, it started long ago. The foundation was laid, and if you try to grow a tree that has not been properly nourished at the beginning, that tree won't be going anywhere, right? So I congratulate the Students' Council, whose initiative this is, to have this bust and to unveil the bust. But let it not stop with the unveiling. Let it go further than that and make a study of what those elements that it represents and the values that it's hoping to instill in you as you study, and you in turn will go to the wider society and influence other people. I salute G.C. Foster, I salute the Students' Council for initiating this program, but I implore you, don't let it stop with just the unveiling and today. Let it continue. And Mrs. Shaw, I wish you well as you complete your book and your memories of G.C. Foster, and I hope it will be successful, well read and used. Congratulations, and thank you very much for allowing me to share this.
Thank you, Sir Fennell. And, as I heard those thoughts, I began to watch the GC Foster website with something like that. Foster family, Mr. Fennell, others who, Cynthia Thompson, little video highlights on the website. So maybe that's what the next group can take up as their mission. And on that matter of massage, we know that was part of GC Foster's techniques for athlete preparation. And quite interestingly, after the London Olympic Games, a number of them, 5 I believe, were honored at GC Foster for their work helping the record-breaking Olympic team in the year 2012. In every race, every relay race, you have to pass the baton. I carry it first step after Mike Fennell's finished. I pass it to Mrs. Watson White for the recognition of the GC Foster student members 2011-12.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The following council members will be awarded this morning for their sterling contribution to the development of GC Foster College as well as to the development of the students who are members of this institution. I am going to invite Mrs. Paulette Jones to come and assist me with the presentations, and we will begin with those individuals who acted in the capacity of peer counselors. Miss Prudence McCoy. I see Prudence has her own little cheering section here. Mr. Demar Howard. Mr. Steve Ferron. Miss Natasha Barnett. Miss Tracia Richards. Miss Shante Roberts. And Mr. Winston Morgan. Just to tell you that if you need a personal trainer, we have some who are here being awarded this morning. Yes. I will now move on to the members of the executive body of the Student Council for the academic year 2011-2012. Thank you, Mrs. Jones. I will invite Mr. Gibbs Williams to come and join me. And you must be wondering why the students are applauding. They are so used to seeing Mr. Williams running around the compound. So it's once in a while that they get the opportunity to see him all decked out in his glory. The awardees are Mr. Michael Newland, who was a post-certificate representative at that time. Miss Kadeen Francis, the third-year representative. Miss Mauricia Carol Anderson, second-year representative. Mr. Ryan Henry, who was the assistant sports coordinator. Mr. O'Shane Nation, who was a sports coordinator. Mrs. Marve Green Hewitt, who was the assistant treasurer. And Mr. Chris Neve Palmer, who was the treasurer of that student council body. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Please don't run away. I now invite our college librarian, Mrs. Jolette Russell, to come and assist in some of the presentations, or assist with some of the presentations. I also invite the following persons to collect their awards for their contribution to student and college development. Mrs. Suzanne Reed, who was the secretary of that student council body. Miss Tarsha McLeod, Assistant General Secretary. Miss Nicole Buchanan, who was our General Secretary. Mr. Dane Reed, who was the Assistant Student Relation Officer. Mr. Reed? Not here, okay. Mr. Othniel Holness, who was the Student Relation Officer. Miss Kenisha Samuels, who was the first vice president, and as a point of information, just to state that she is now the president of the present student council body, and she's the first female to act in the capacity of president of the student council body of the GC Foster College. And our president of that student council body, Mr. Kemar Gale, one of the persons who conceptualized today's activities. There are two other persons who are being awarded today. One person is a student who has worked assiduously with the members of the student council body, even though he was not actually a member of the body. One would confuse him as the president, because not only does he share first name with the president, but he also shares grades and other things in terms of competing in the classes. And I would just want to say thank you on behalf of the student council body for 2011 to 2012 to none other than Mr. Kemar Bailey. And if you look, he looks just like the president. So many times persons mistake them. The staff advisor for the student council body should have been here this morning to be awarded as well, but I suspect that an emergency has prevented him from being here. But that person is Mr. Dwight Angus. Thank you very much, Mrs. Russell. Ladies and gentlemen, again, put your hands together for our awardees and have a wonderful day.
First female president. Congrats to all. One of the things that GC Foster would have been proud of is the fact that the staff, the faculty of the GC Foster has helped greatly in Jamaica's progress in sport. Forgive my biases, but allow me to call to your attention the well-dressed Gibbs Williams. He's part of the successful coaching team that has led Jamaica to dominance in regional cricket. I think he coached Tamara Lambert. I spoke to Tamara a while ago. He mentions the key role of what Gibbs Williams taught him. And of course, Tamara is the successful captain of Jamaica's regional cricket team in all formats champions right now. So big round of applause for Gibbs Williams. They didn't know I was a cricket fan. So I can pick the team. Maurice Westney. He was in my reminiscing about GC Foster. He was in London, has been the Jamaica track and field team for many years. Maurice Westney. My colleague from table tennis, Donald Salmon, former Jamaica technical director in table tennis. Donald Salmon at the back. The other GC Foster Maurice, head coach Jamaica's Olympic team. He's here somewhere. Willow? At the back. So, and there are others here, but forgive my biases. Carol Beckford can't be here today. Spoke with her. She wants me to wish the Student Council her congratulations on this venture. She wants to say a special thank you to the family of GC Foster, and she wants to hope that this is a start of measures to continue to honor his work and legacy. Carol Beckford, she's a lecturer here. She asked me to offer this to you this morning. I put that last because now we come to the juice of the function, where we go to GC Foster's family to remember GC Foster. My generation didn't know him, didn't meet him. We meet him as a name on the sign at the front of this building. And you hear Mike Fennell telling you he wants another sign out front, so you don't miss it. There was a sign out there for a long time. But we go to GC Foster's family because their recollection is special. They knew him personally. They grew up in his hands, cradled by his wisdom. We call to the podium for remembrance of Gerald Claude Foster, Mrs. Diane Shaw, his granddaughter.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. I am humbled to be here. Very, very pleased that you have this recognition of GC. I'd like to welcome Mr. Mike Fennell, President of the Jamaica Olympic Association. Miss Cunningham, who is standing in for Mr. Shakes, the principal this morning. Mr. Maurice Westney, the Vice Principal, and the Chairman of the museum, the GC Foster College Museum. Mr. Hubert Lawrence, who apart from being chairman this morning is a renowned sports historian and author. Mr. Kemar Gale, President of the Student Council for 2011 to 2012. Members of staff, other members of the Student Council. Before I start my recollections of a great man, I want to introduce the family members who are here this morning. So I'll call on Andrea Roberts, another granddaughter, my sister, and her husband Richard Roberts, who in his time was a fantastic athlete, badminton, representative of Jamaica to the Commonwealth Games, right? We have an athlete by association. So we're proud of him. There's Michelle Gauntlet, who is another granddaughter. My daughter, so that's a great-granddaughter of GC, Nicole Zadie. And we have another great-grandson, Sharma Beckford, of whom GC would be very proud because he's an athlete in his own right. He's a surfer, a member of the Jamaica Surfing Association, and has already represented Jamaica in many countries, Peru, Panama, and Trinidad. So we have in our midst another athlete. GC always wanted some of his family to be athletes. You can imagine this was his passion. Whenever he spotted talent, he would grab it and work assiduously to create that ability to bring that athlete to his full potential. So of course he had a good look around his family. Well, when he started with me, because I was the eldest one. And I have to say I could run quite fast, but I lacked the competitive edge. I just wasn't. So he turned his attention to academics. So this is just to let you know a little bit about the man now. The same qualities of persistence, motivation, humor, drive, he applied to me. So since math was my weakest subject, he focused on that. And so he wrote out himself the timetables, not just the 12, right up to 20, right? And I was forced to learn all those things by heart. And I did. And that was a big help to me. And also because geometry was my nemesis, he said, well, we're going to get you a math tutor. I was doing, Senior Cambridge in those days, which now CXC is equivalent. So he got me the math tutor, and that helped me as well. So I got a good enough pass in math. So he wasn't too downhearted about that. I'm going to focus on the man, but I just want to touch on something before I go into that. I think you know that at the age 23, he was already an outstanding sprinter in Jamaica, renowned for the times he had made in the 100 yards. I believe he did 9.9 or something like that. He was good. And he was self-taught. I think as Mr. Fennell mentioned, in those days we didn't have TV, we didn't have all these connections with the outside world. And in those days, I don't even think Mr. Harry Andrews yet was his mentor, who became his mentor later on. So he used to swim across the harbor, ride his bicycle up to Augustown, walk. He and his brother used to run in those days it was a tram. And they would say, why walk when we can run? So running was an integral franchise. I was very close to him. Some of you may have heard of their residence at 75 Halfway Tree Road, Earnscliffe, which is where he used to have his massage studio. Many, many, many Jamaicans went there. As a grandchild, because we lived on the same premises but in another house, countless numbers of people thronged to him into that massage room. Athletes of every stripe, not just sprinters, hurdlers, cyclists, boxers, you name it, they went. Because they went to be healed of their injuries. They went to get to know him because he was an amazing motivator. And just to enjoy his sense of humor. He was very funny. And I used to hear, Andrew and I lived there, in another house. We used to see all these people coming through and lots of laughter. They'd have the massage session, which I'll tell you about. And then after the session, there would be lots of stories, exchanging of stories, loud laughter. People constantly came to him. And he had time for everybody, which was amazing. If you went to him, he would spend time with you and you'd come out feeling like you could do it, right? When I think back on GC, he was a wonderful athlete, but he didn't have the tall, slim physique and muscles of our Usain Bolt, nor of Arthur Winton his day. He was a stocky man, short and stocky, but he was still an amazing athlete. So he doesn't fit the image of our usual tall, long-legged, but apparently must have been good. He was very strong. So he accomplished. when I remember him, my grandfather coached many schools. JC, KC, Wolmer's, Calabar, which won champs 4 times, and many other schools. He even taught St. Andrew's Girls' School when they were little girls. He had no favorites. He just wanted to help young people achieve and accomplish. And as I think Mr. Lawrence said, that instilling of discipline that they had translated itself later on in their lives, because I've spoken to many athletes. Barclay Ewart was one, and of course he's dead now. Keith Gardner. And they said that whatever they learned from him, they translated into their lives in the future. That discipline, drive, don't give up style. Barclay Ewart became he was a wonderful athlete, but he became a phenomenal businessman. Keith Gardner became the director of the sports at the University of the West Indies, and then he was in charge of the Multicare Foundation, which helped kids from, I think he said, all the way from Harborview all the way out to Portmore. 31 schools he was in charge of. So they translated their life experience into serving this country. When I think back of GC, we used to call him Gramps, right? Gramps, Grandpa. We used to go to champs, and by that time he was a legend when all the schools were competing. So when he walked out in the field in his unforgettable outfit, which I will describe, a big cheer went up from all the stands because he was a legend already in his time. They knew him. He rode his bicycle to every school. Nothing like car. I think cars were beginning to come in, but he was much happier on his bicycle. And as an elderly man, he still rode, you know. He was keeping fit. Wolmer's, and he was riding from 75 Halfway Tree Road down to Wolmer's. These were long rides, right? Anyway, when he came out on the field, he was already known, but he would wear his cream blazer with the Union Jack on the right pocket, his cream pants, and his Panama hat. And he was stocky. So as he stepped onto the field, they knew Mr. G was there, because he was very recognizable in that outfit, right? He was committed to sport, an abiding passion. So he was the timekeeper, and he would also start the races. And I'll just share with you a little story. One athlete told me, apparently they were having a 100 yards race. And one athlete was doing amazingly well. He was coming in at 9.9. So GC looked at the stopwatch and ran up, 9.9, 9.9, 9.9. And he ran into the track, which was unlike him. And the second person coming in hit him over. But undaunted, he lay on the ground and said, 9.9, 9. So you understand the kind of man you have. That is why there's a lot to emulate in him, right? The drive and the determination. Anyway, I think I told you a little bit about the veranda. I'm not sure if I did yet. The veranda with the massages. Okay. I told you about all the people who came there. And in fact, Norman Manley brought his sons, Michael, who was a boxer, and he brought Douglas, who was a runner. And my grandfather would keep people fit. It didn't matter if they weren't in school or what. Whoever came, he would keep them fit. And even Sir Alexander Bustamante, I understood, came. He had a bad knee. So all these people passed through, but GC was not political. His interest was in developing whatever talent you had. Anyway, I'll just describe the massage room to you, for some of you will never see that room. And the little veranda. When the students or whoever it was came for a massage, for which he was famous, they would go into this little room, which was on the right side of the latticed veranda, which is where all the socializing took place. And there was a bed, a tall kind of medical bed, and above it hung a red heat lamp, because he believed in hot and cold treatments. So he had all his brews and concoctions. He would mix wintergreen, which has a strong smell as well as a heat, and he'd mix that with mineral oil and massage the affected part of, like your knee or your ankle or whatever problem the student had. Then after that, I've been under the heat lamp as well. All the time now he's motivating the student, because the student might say, Mr. J, I didn't do so well. Don't give up, man. You have it, and you know. And after the heat process, the foot would be put into a basin of cold water with ice cubes floating on the top. So hot and cold. Another athlete told me that sometimes you'd have a hot shower. You have a cold shower, and a hot shower, and a cold. So there was this constant mixture of the elements, plus the motivational talk that you got, and a few good jokes as well. So he said, by the time you left the massage room, you felt as if you were floating on air. It was such a wonderful experience. And he said that some students would even lie. They would pretend they had an injury to get the magic touch of Mr. G. Yeah, so as I said, growing up, we saw all these students coming, all these people. When Andrea and I were little girls, there was Keith Gardner, who was somebody that was really close to him. He would come and hurdle over our heads. I don't forget that, right? We might have been like 9 and so he would just sail over us effortlessly, right? Let me see now. Oh, just something else I forgot to say about me that shows you. When I was a teenager and I used to walk to school, and I went to Queen's School, so I had a good walk in those days. He would teach me how to inhale and exhale. But you know, the inhaling and exhaling was a big part of his philosophy. So he would say, walk for 8 steps, and for each of the 8 you inhale. So by that time you're kind of bursted, right? And then for the next 8 steps you exhale. And all the time. Now he was a spiritual man. He would say to me, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I would carry in my books, inhaling, exhaling, saying that to myself. I was kind of a nervous little girl, you know, so he was good for me. So by the time I went to school, I was quite calm, having inhaled and exhaled and spoken to my mind that Christ would enable me. And that's what he did. He always told students, you know, how to be enabled. He was not a politician, and he was not interested in money either. A lot of his coaching, he wasn't paid for that, but his passion took him through. And I must add, he had 2 wives, of course, at different times. And both ladies, he knew how to select. The first one died when she was very young, but she was a businesswoman. She was a millionaire. The second one now had to bring up these 5 children. She was a business lady too. They had a big house, which I think the other wife had managed to buy, Earnscliffe. And also they had a lot of boarders, tenants, people from abroad would come and stay there. And later on they had another, so they rented out things. So I think that's one of the ways that he survived. But no doubt these wives were very devoted to him and just the life that he brought. You know, he was a very intelligent man. He played chess, bridge, and there were bridge parties and all of that. Very sociable. And he also knew some Latin. So this brings me now to his maxims, the things that he would tell the students and the rest of us. And he was famous for his maxims. They were humorous, but they were wise. I understand that when they had their physical education classes, he would tell the boys, stretch out the muscles of your latissimus dorsi. What is that? Well, it was a muscle, it's a muscle in your back, right? But you would drop that Latin thing on them, the latissimus dorsi. And all the people that I've talked to remember that he would use, he was very colorful, you know. He taught them too that you have to be gracious in defeat. You want to win, but the character is more important. So although he taught them so much about winning and not giving up, you must lose graciously, and that's not really your enemy. That could be your friend. So he built character. Other maxims that he had, when he was preparing them for a meet, or all the time he would say, in times of peace, prepare for war. So you don't relax and think, oh, you know, I don't have a meet right now, you know, I can take. No. Prepare for, you must always keep fit, always exercise. And another similar one was, while the enemy sleeps, we must toil. So let the enemy relax. We are going to be working while they're sleeping. we must toil. So he really motivated them, and so there's a lot of discipline in his philosophy, which I think he applied to himself as well. All right, so you're getting a picture of the GC, the other side, the family man, the human person. I'm just going to leave you. I'm going to finish. I'm going to leave you with one saying of his, which shows his humor. He said, when the chips were down, like when life was rough, we're not to give in and look like that. That is when you must dress up, look good. Yes. You remember that? And you would say, you must look especially good when you go into the bank. So, we try and follow those words. But I think it's good, because when you dress and look good, you actually feel better before you know? So it's good psychology. So that brings me to the end of my talk. I just want to thank you all for inviting me. We're really honored to be here on this auspicious occasion. And I want to congratulate, well, Mr. Shakes is not here, but the principal and the staff here, the museum committee, and the student council for initiating this wonderful gesture. But to really thank you all for all that you're doing to perpetuate his memory and to make this a really great institution, which you are doing. So congratulations and thank you very much.
Gerald Claude Eugene Foster was born in Spanish Town in 1885. He was a versatile and outstanding sportsman who dedicated himself to the pursuit of excellence in all his sporting-related endeavors. He distinguished himself at cricket, football, tennis, and his great love, track and field. G.C. Foster overcame the near insurmountable handicaps of training and performing in the underdeveloped environment of Jamaica during the early 20th century. This icon is noted to the world of sports for his dedication and great contribution to the promotion of sports in Jamaica. He began his athletic career in 1903 when he became Jamaica's sprint champion. He was an exceptional sprinter who went within a percentage point of the world record for the 100 yards dash and was a nemesis to international stars. He set a Jamaica record in the 100 yards, overcoming the distance of 9.7 seconds and the 200 yards in 21.8 seconds. In 1908, G.C. Foster defeated the then champion Sims and Ford at the Jamaica Championship at Sabina Park. His long jump of 22 feet 4 inches also gained him another title. In that same year, he attempted to compete in the World Olympics in England, but was unfortunately disqualified because Jamaica was not affiliated with the Olympic body. However, after the Olympics, he competed in Lancashire and Yorkshire and won 6 races. The most famous race was the one in which he beat the then 3rd place winner of the Olympics, A.J. Northridge, an Irish American. It was reported that a proud Foster commented that, "I got a start, and at 65 yards was just ahead, and at 75 yards was 2 yards ahead." A stunned Northridge reportedly said, "Great God, what a runner! Instead of giving you a yard, you could have given me 3 yards. If I live to be 100 years old, I will never forget this." The England coach Harry Andrews invited Foster to Belfast in Ireland, with a team of Olympic stars. Foster emerged winner for the 100 yards race over their 3 favorites. Foster was then congratulated with "Well run, Jamaica." Unfortunately, G.C. Foster was unable to return to England to compete in other athletic events because of the terms of employment of his civil service job. Nevertheless, GC Foster continued to compete and win local races between 1903 and 1915. He was Jamaica's champion in the 100 yards, 100 meters, 120 yards, and the 200 yards. GC Foster was also an outstanding cricketer, cricket coach, and umpire. The illustrious career of GC Foster included the physical development of youths with emphasis on qualities of intelligence, dedication, perseverance, and self-assurance. He possessed a great store of wisdom, technical knowledge, and an uncanny ability to identify talent in the most unlikely bodies. He was a genius for inspiring young athletes to believe in themselves, to correct technical faults, and to achieve surprising level of performance. GC Foster, a father figure to those in which were in his charge, a treasury of time honored maxims. This was supplemented by his wit as a coach, masseur, and a player of bridge and chess in his later years. He was the greatest colleague for one to have, and a dangerous, though always grateful opponent. To this monumental and unforgettable Jamaican sportsman is named the GC Foster College of Physical Education and Sports, in which our motto is a sound mind in a sound body. Today, let us honor this great man, Gerald Claude Eugene Foster, after whom this prestigious institution is named. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gale, we're going to ask you for maybe the highlight of the function. It has two highlights. The family remembrance of Gerald Claude Eugene Foster is one of them. And we go now to that second highlight. I want to say hi to Dana Crawford, lecturer here, but she really is hockey all her life, and our mom, a great servant of Jamaican sport through netball. Good morning. We are about to repair to Eugene Circle to unveil the bust of GC Foster. It's done by Raymond Watson, a Jamaican has lived here and in Trinidad, and he's part of that famous Watson art family. So we look forward to that. So we ask you to repair to Eugene Circle as we unveil the bust of GC Foster. Akil is your organizer. Ask the panel to step forward with the family of GC Foster, please, and Mrs. Cunningham representing GC Foster Packet. We're going to first cut the ribbon. I wonder, Mrs. Shaw, do you have an elect person among your group? Young circle, sisters together, both grandchildren together, Mr. Fennell, Ms. Cunningham, Mr. Wesley, Vice Principal, please. Photographers. Closer up, Mr. Fennell, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Cunningham, family, closer up so they can see you, please. Big round of applause. Opening of Eugene Circle. Ask for the party to advance up to the bus now by Raymond Watson. With you. Grandchildren now. Ask you to step forward. step on the grass today without getting detention. Students won't step on the grass. It's against the rules here. You can step on the grass today. Today. For 5 minutes. You better enjoy this. It'll never happen again. Michelle, Mrs. Andrew, let's get a step closer please. You do the last bit of unveiling. Grandchildren.
Here we go.
Please. Big round of applause. Gerald Claude Foster, unveiled at GC Foster on the 21st of November 2012. The spirit of GC Foster lives in angels and Spanish Town. A wonderful moment. Photographers.
But they didn't say that the address is right beside Holy Cross Church. Yeah, right beside. I meant say that because that's how I found the place around there. It says right beside Holy Cross Church.
When the photographers are quite finished, we invite for the vote of thanks of the hosts.
I think we need a photograph now from this side. Yeah? So we're gonna go that side. No, we're gonna take one with that one. What?
Turn around there. This way.
Someone that side. Someone that side. Is it? Oh, this is the
Smile.
You heard it?
Thank you.
Again, everyone, and it asks today to give thanks. It is with joy of association I give thanks to all persons involved and participants. First, I would like to highlight the following person, Mr. Hubert Lawrence, for giving his open remark. He did it quietly and collectively. Applaud him. Ms. Colin our VP for Academics, he represented Mr. Edward Chase and she did justice. Yeah. And greetings from Mr. Maurice Wesley and also Mr. Mike Fennell, President of Jamaica Olympic Association. They give us history, valid knowledge about the man Gerald Claude Eugene Foster and did him justice as well. Miss Diana Shaw, granddaughter of Gerald Claude Foster. And like most of all, she gave us history about the individual outside of sports and that he was a strong believer of education. Thank you, Mr. Again, my president, classmate, a wonderful friend,
by taking the first section of the citation, he managed to compel himself and also highlight with God all things are possible. He did a wonderful job, and I must commend you for your hard work for the function. Thank you everyone for participating in our historic moment, and safe travel home.